Hi, um, welcome. We are really grateful to have you here today for our State of the Kitchen update. And I want to make sure that we use our time in a very fruitful manner. You have ways of getting a hold of us, asking any questions so that we can answer them and make this presentation as interactive as possible. But I want to start, first of all, with the mission of our organization, because ultimately this is what we're about. For those of you that may not know who I am, my name is Alberto Cortes, the CEO of Mama's Kitchen. My pronouns are he, him, his. And at Mama's Kitchen, we believe that everyone's entitled to the basic necessity of life: nutritious food. Our services improve the health and well-being of families and individuals that are vulnerable to malnutrition due to critical illnesses. Again, welcome to our event this evening, our virtual event. I want to share some progress and some accomplishments of the organization and some of the challenges that we have, as well as share with you some information about what the future looks like and what we're working towards in order to remain responsive, relevant, and attentive to the growing needs of San Diegans in the field of nutrition and folks that are suffering with the critical illnesses that we're looking to help improve. So the first chart that was flashed on the screen there for a second represents our daily numbers. Those this goes back to 2018, and the goal in here is to show that, as you will see, the peak so close to the middle of the chart represents where we were in May of last year, or May of this year, actually, last fiscal year, but this calendar year, where we were serving on any given day anywhere close to 700 individuals. Since that, and as we had previously predicted, the number of people utilizing the services at Mama's Kitchen is decreasing, or has decreased, and we are currently at about a 500 range. In other words, we provide home delivered meals to about 500 individuals currently at every delivery date that we have. And I anticipate that this is, as you can see, been flattening out a little bit and will continue to stay there for a while. But we project that over time, over the next 6 months, 6 to 9 months, this number will be rising again. There are a lot of unknown variables. We're not at the end of the pandemic yet. And now with the COVID variant, it's difficult to determine how the pandemic behaves and how it impacts our community, and how that in turn can impact the demand for our services. But the growth that we're planning for goes beyond the impact of the pandemic, but our many efforts in both increasing our internal capacity to serve more and increasing our community outreach and our connections in the community in order for us to increase the knowledge about our services and the agencies that we work with and partner with us to provide referrals into our program. We are seeing a significant number of referrals provided into the service. In the month of July alone, we delivered over 46,000 meals. In fiscal year 2020, which ended in June, our COVID, which is the first year impacted by COVID, we served over 528,000 meals, while in the fiscal year that just ended in June 30th of 2021, we were just shy of 600,000 meals. So the last couple of fiscal years have been record years for the organization. We provided in those 2 years well over 1 million meals. And that represents 1/10 of the meals that we've served over a 30-year period. And that's just in the last 2 years. Many of you may know that we expanded our mission scope to include individuals with chronic kidney disease last August in the throes of the pandemic. And we were initially anticipating about 15 chronic kidney disease clients. In the first year, we actually ended up with 94 clients, which is a significant increase. In front of you, this chart that you see shows the number of clients per year since 2015. So it's a 6-year comparison. And the two pieces that I'll point out is that until 2018, we were generally serving people with cancer and HIV. And in 2019, we introduced new populations. And you'll see a dramatic change between 2018 and 2019. And furthermore, you now see the dramatic change between 2019 and 2020 on the number of clients that we have served. I anticipate those numbers to continue to increase, and that the number of people that we're serving will, in each of these conditions that we're serving, will continue to increase into the foreseeable future. As we look at the communities that we serve, we are certainly serving across San Diego County, but see increases in places like North County, Chula Vista, and East County, where the number of people receiving our services and the number of meals that go out are really significantly higher. Again, we anticipate a growth in all of those areas and are doing and I'll share with you a little later as to all of the things that we're doing to prepare ourselves from an infrastructure and a community outreach perspective to be more responsive as more clients come into the organization for services. That's all I have for now, but I'm going to I have the pleasure of introducing our Mark Maddox, our Director of Volunteer Engagement, who's going to speak to you a little bit about what we've done around COVID. Mark has been leading us as our COVID czar in our response to this pandemic, and making sure that we not only keep our clients safe, but also are working internally in a very safe way. Mark,
Thank you. Thanks, Alberto. As Alberto said, I'm Mark Maddox, Director of Volunteer Engagement. Since last April, I've also had the pleasure of serving as the organization's Infection Prevention and Control Officer. My pronouns are he, him, his. As Alberto mentioned, I'm going to chat with you a bit about our COVID safety procedures as they currently stand, where we see them going, and then a little bit about the volunteer experience from the last year. So our safety procedures, since the beginning of COVID, we have utilized a multi-tiered approach. We are following all public health guidance and using that public health guidance to inform decision-making and inform precautions for the specific context here at Mama's Kitchen. So right now, what we are looking at is that CDC data is saying that the Delta variant of COVID-19 is more transmissible. Our population that we serve on our home delivered meal program is made up of vulnerable individuals. And we need to assume that all of our clients, because we have no mechanism for ensuring or following up any other way, that all of our clients that we're serving, we are assuming they are unvaccinated because we don't know otherwise. So we are making precautions from that standpoint. This is why for our meal deliveries, we have still instituted a no contact delivery. So knocking or ringing the bell, stepping back 6 feet while wearing face coverings, and then ensuring that someone does take that inside. Inside our facility, we have face coverings required for everyone, regardless of vaccination status. Everyone has their temperature taken, and then everyone is signing in and out. So if we do need to do any contact tracing, we're able to do that. As always, and I think the pandemic has been a really strong reminder, folks need to stay home if they are sick, and we are really sticking to that line. All of our volunteers, so folks may be familiar that from January 12th through April 12th of 2021, we took a pause on all in-facility volunteering as we saw the surge in the winter. And a requirement for volunteers to re-enter the facility in April was that all volunteers needed to be fully vaccinated, meaning they'd received either the single Johnson & Johnson or both sequences of Moderna or Pfizer plus 14 days in order to be eligible for volunteer service. We will be extending that starting September 1st for all individuals who are making meal deliveries. As I started this conversation, it really is about ensuring that we are providing the safest possible environment for our vulnerable clients, but also for our staff and our volunteers. So lots of great things happening. We're still really committed to ensuring that we are providing the safest possible work environment. As Alberto mentioned, we're not in post-pandemic. We are, as what I'm hoping is late-stage pandemic, but we still have a laser focus on ensuring that we are providing a safe environment. With that, I'll transition into discussing some of our statistics that we saw from our volunteer corps over the last fiscal year, so the fiscal year that just ended on June 30th. My fantastic backstage crew, thank you to the staff who are working behind the scenes to make this happen. So for the fiscal year that ended on June 30th, our volunteer corps served nearly 27,000 hours. And I think what's staggering is to compare it to the year prior. So the year prior, 8 of those months were the BC times, so the before COVID times, which means that our pantry service was still open. We were still having food drives on Sundays. We had very large kitchen crews, 10, 15, 20 folks coming in at a time. So to see still a very large number from our volunteers is really inspiring to see that community support. Nearly half of those hours were meal deliveries. So a great level of work from our meal delivery volunteers. You'll see our next number, we had about 600 folks volunteer with us in fiscal year 2021. That is less than half of the prior year. And that's for a couple of reasons. So obviously, COVID came. So that limited our ability to host group volunteers. So that is a significant portion of that number. As I hinted at, we severely, or drastically is a better word, we drastically reduced our number of volunteers in the facility. And actually that has sort of become our normal. And then we don't have a pantry service and we're not doing food drives. So that's a major chunk of those hours, of those individual volunteers, excuse me. We did deliver over 210,000 miles were driven last fiscal year, making our home delivered meal deliveries. So a very significant amount of miles driven. So thank you to all of those drivers. I think what is the most inspiring number for me out of all of these statistics is looking at our average contribution of hours served by volunteer, which last fiscal year was 43 hours per volunteer, which is double from the year prior. So while we had a significantly smaller, though 600 is, it's hard to say that is small, while we had a significantly smaller number of volunteers, each one of those volunteers contributed on average twice as much as they did from the year prior. I know that we all felt that. So from all of us on staff, really a true heartfelt thank you. Our immense gratitude for all of the volunteers last fiscal year. You really showed up in impeccable and outstanding ways. Overall, that contribution between miles driven and hours served still was a valuation of over $1 million of economic value between hours and miles. So there is some really tangible quantitative value in addition to all of the great experiences that we have with all of you folks each day here at the kitchen. Looking ahead, so I've hinted at we've really changed our operations quite a bit, and Chef Jason will be on after me, so I will not give too much away. But I will say that in all of COVID, we've learned that we can be a small team, but a mighty team. And I think we've learned a lot of great lessons about what small but mighty can do for us. We've increased our efficiencies. We've streamlined a lot of things. We've been able to put out so many more meals with smaller groups of people in an even more impactful and efficient manner. So if you have been away since before COVID or thinking of coming back into the facility in the next few months or when COVID maybe is less of a thing, understand that things have changed. So staff leads all of the volunteer activities that are happening in the facility. So you are coming in, a staff lead is leading that. But each one of you volunteers is very crucial to the task and the operation. You always have been valuable members of the team. But when we go from 15 volunteers on a particular shift to 6, your contributions are very, very meaningful and very, very needed. As we look ahead, we'll be looking to add additional small shifts. So like I said, the chef is going to say more about that. I'm not going to steal his thunder too much, but know that we're going to add some shifts at times that we maybe have never had volunteers in the building in the kitchen to maximize. So we're really looking forward to that. Additionally, next week, we're excited to welcome back some corporate groups with some modifications. So they will be joining us late afternoons on Mondays and Thursdays starting next week. 4 to 6 individuals. We are requiring, as we are for every one of our volunteers in the facility, that folks are fully vaccinated. They will follow all of the same safety procedures. No exceptions for that, but we are excited to welcome some groups back. I know that the team that has been scheduling them, they have had a lot of very excited interest. So we're excited to welcome them back in. And then the immediate and looking forward, where do we need folks? So the last slide that Alberto had up was showing sort of the distribution of clients throughout the San Diego County. And I will say that is similar to our needs, particularly for meal delivery drivers. We are particularly in need of drivers in the North County and South Bay areas. And I am always happy to welcome any individual or group that is looking to make meal deliveries. I actually quite enjoy it. It really is. You can see the mission in action. You can see the clients that we are serving. Even with a mask on and a no contact delivery, you're truly seeing the impact of the work. We are looking for kitchen and staging volunteers, particularly on our delivery days. So that would be Tuesdays and Fridays. And then those afternoon shifts. So as we look to expand our capacity in the kitchen, we're looking to add 12:30 to 2:30 and 1 to 3 o'clock shifts in the afternoon. So if you maybe are not available in our traditional morning shifts, we still are going to be having opportunities in the afternoon. And then as we grow, we have additional administrative and office needs. And so we have regular shifts each day of the week in those areas. All of the information about all of our volunteer needs can be found at mamaskitchen.org/volunteer, or you can email me directly, Mark, M-A-R-K, @mamaskitchen.org. I want to thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Thank you for all of the meaningful ways that you contribute to the organization, whether supporting us, cheering us on out in the community, or coming into the facility to deliver meals or to prepare meals. Truly, thank you from myself and all of us at the kitchen. Back to you, Alberto.
Mark, thank you for that wonderfully detailed update. And I want to also thank our volunteers. You make our mission happen. and we are eternally grateful for your commitment to the work that we do. So thank you from my heart, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure now to introduce Jason Martin, our executive chef, who's going to give us a few updates of what's going on in the kitchen. Mr. Jason.
All right, thank you, Alberto. For those of you who don't know me or don't recognize me without a hat on, my name is Jason Martin. I'm the executive chef. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm going to give you a rundown operationally of some of the challenges that we've faced, and I can sum up the year in one phrase, and that is, when life gives you lemons, we make lemonade. So we've pivoted and made lemonade 4 or 5 times in the last year. As Alberto alluded to, at the beginning of COVID last year, we took on quite a lot of new clients, and we had to pivot on the fly. We had volunteers step up in an unbelievable fashion, giving us so much time and so much expertise. Some of the systems that we changed, including the paperwork that I use in the kitchen, is in large part due to volunteers that had outside experience who helped me change that paperwork very quickly. So I can say that the staff pulled together extremely well, and we revisited every single process that, if you haven't volunteered in a year and a half, every process that you knew is probably different and changed. And we've replaced it with what we believe are actually more streamlined, better. We do a lot more with less. And that's not to say that we don't value each volunteer, but now we have new tasks. So what we did initially is we simplified the menu and really focused on sourcing food that we knew we could get for our clients, because the number one thing was to make sure that we were feeding people 365 days a year in uncertain times. So we were able to change the building quite a bit. We did demolish the large office downstairs, which is mostly now food storage. And the conference room has been temporary food storage now for a year. In large part, those have helped us save money and ensure that we're able to deliver the nutrition to our clients no matter what happens. For those of you that are experiencing frustrations at the grocery store on a small scale, we are also experiencing those changes in the food economy at a macro scale. So we are able to house, enough oatmeal and enough shelf-stable meals to make sure that if for any reason we weren't able to get food deliveries, we are able to still feed our clients under the worst of circumstances. I want to talk a little bit about the new procedure for filling bags. So what we've done is we've compartmentalized the bags. Some of you may remember that we used to fill the bags one item at a time, and it would take a lot of volunteers a very long time to go through this process. What we've done for safety reasons is we've split that process apart into compartmentalized things like a grocery bag, a cold bag, and what we call meal bundles, which are all of our trays, and they're bundled together so that they can just be placed into the bag. That actually came about through a massive staff undertaking, and it led to us realizing that we make less mistakes with special diets by allowing us to prepackage the food. So again, COVID led to something good. Write that down. We went through the first half of the COVID crisis in that streamlined fashion. Many of you may know that as things got worse, we had to ask our volunteers to step away. I will say that was a painful process. Every staff member was required to come in and package food and do every task that volunteers were doing. We largely simplified our menu to chicken and rice, and still taking care of our vegetarian clients and special diets. but we went with a very, very simple menu that we knew we could execute. It was not ideal. There was some food fatigue, but everyone was fed every day, and that's the most important thing. As we've come back out, I have to say it's been a pleasure to welcome the volunteers back into the kitchen and just see half of a smiling face anyway, and have laughs and learn about what everyone's been doing during this off time. Having the volunteers back has enabled us to get back on a 6-week menu cycle. So we're back to offering braised beef dishes, Indian chicken, Moroccan chicken, things that would have taken too long last year. We are now offering again. We've also eliminated all burritos and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from the bag, which is something this was on the radar before COVID, but COVID led to that. So through this process, we are now making 10 scratch meals a week at our current volume. And as Mark alluded to, we are going to be adding shifts onto the end of the day. For many of you who have been around, historically, Mama's Kitchen has not utilized the kitchen facility into the evening. So as we build capacity and the need for our services grow, we will be adding shifts. In fact, most recently, we added a new shift to package our own yogurt, which allowed us to save money to get our clients an unsweetened yogurt with fresh fruit, which is better for the diabetics. It's better for everyone. So stay tuned for more changes. There will be, as Mark said, new tasks, new opportunities, but we do not foresee a situation where we will go back to having, a mass amount of volunteers standing shoulder to shoulder, doing the bags one at a time. We'll continue to evolve and take the learnings from COVID and move forward. I do anticipate there are going to be some supply chain challenges ahead. That part, many of you may have heard on the news that there's some gaps in the workforce right now, and that is affecting us getting food. So our inventory in the building is high. I'm cutting it back, but it is going to remain high until we're sure that we can get food on demand. We will continue to put out new dishes, and we are. I did want to touch on the chronic kidney project that Alberto mentioned, and send a shout out to our 2 registered dietitians who spearheaded that project. I want everyone to understand that when we offer a new diet, there's layers of complexity that make everything downstairs in the kitchen more complicated. So our dietitians did an amazing job of helping me design a menu in which it aligned closely with the diabetic diet and the heart disease diet, so that we could operate downstairs in a simple fashion and grow that project bigger than we thought we would. I'm not going to steal Alberto's thunder now. We are looking at increasing capacity in several ways. And as I mentioned, increasing the hours of the kitchen is one way. We are evaluating all the equipment that we have downstairs and seeing if there's any way for us to invest in equipment that would allow us to make more food. And we are also looking at the building itself and seeing if we need more space to operate. So those are all things that we're working on, and exciting things ahead. Thanks, Alberto.
Jason, thank you. Thank you for that update and for your work and leadership. Jason touched on a few things that I want to expand upon a little bit. For the current fiscal year, we function from July 1 through June 30th as our fiscal year. And for this year that just started on July 1st, we identified a number of priorities for our organization that include revisiting our home delivered meal program and seeing how we can continue to improve the quality of service and the capacity around that service. Looking at our pantry service, our pantry has been closed since the start of the pandemic. One of the priorities we have this fiscal year is to identify a new location for that program, expand the population of folks that may benefit from that program, and be operational hopefully sometime at the start of that calendar year. We are also very intentionally looking at how we function as an organization that is conscious of social justice and our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and have a team of staff members that are taking a leadership in establishing some norms that affirm those aspects of who we are as an organization and redefines some of our culture in a way that is more sensitive and more inclusive, and attentive and responsive to injustice in our community. In addition to that, I'm really excited that we are, this is our first year that we are going to be participating in research that adds to the field of evidence about the value of our medically tailored programs. We're working with folks at Scripps Health in doing what will be our first study that will be peer-reviewed and published. We are also looking at our building capacity, as Jason mentioned. In addition to equipment, we're looking at our space. We're looking how we might redesign our space to maximize its use, as well as address the issue of a growing staff. Currently, we are at over 30 employees. That's more employees than we've ever had. In the current fiscal year budget, we have, the board has approved funding that will allow us to hire up to 40 employees. Our building does not have the capacity for holding that many people, given the current structure. So we are working with some designers and architects who will be helping us redesign our facility in a way that more efficiently uses our space, and not just for staffing, but again, for increasing our capacity. Additionally, in the area of capacity building for the organization, we're really excited that we are about to start the actual introduction and implementation of a new client software program. We've been functioning with a very old client software system that is cumbersome and clunky, and we're really excited to be able to introduce this new software system, which is going to be challenging to implement because software implementation is always challenging, but will be of huge value to our organization, and will better allow us to serve our community and to do it in a more efficient way. We are hiring people. We have, if you can go to our website, I believe right now you'll find that there are 5 positions that we are currently hiring for. In recent weeks and sometimes days, we've actually had hired our first IT manager. We're really excited that she's on board, providing that capacity on a full-time level. We also are soon to have our new human resources manager, again, a new position that our organization has never had before, on a full-time basis. For literally years, we have been in search of a Spanish and English-speaking registered dietitian, and I'm really excited to announce that just yesterday, I believe, a young woman accepted an offer and will be coming to work with us in the middle of September as our first bilingual registered dietitian, increasing our capacity in a significant way, and our capacity and our ability to serve community in a more direct and in a more efficient way as well. So there's a lot going on. We're looking for a licensed clinical social worker. We recently hired internally for an outreach position that is really critical for our organization. So those are just a few of the things that are going from happening from a personnel perspective that we're really excited about. We're in the process of all of this. Also, our Senior Director of Strategy, Christine Stensberg, is taking a lead in evaluating all aspects of services that we provide so that we are not just feeling good about what we do, but making sure that we're implementing improvements to how we serve the people we serve and the impact that we have in the community. And so that's another effort that is very important for us. And those projects, in essence, define the priorities that we have for the current fiscal year in our organization. And it's all really exciting. It can feel a little overwhelming at times, but I'm grateful for my coworkers in this organization who are so committed to the mission of the organization and committed to see that Mama's Kitchen is the best organization that we can possibly be. So for them, I am immensely, immensely grateful. When we look at our biggest needs, I will touch on volunteers. As Mark shared, what our current situation is. We are always looking for volunteers. I will keep you informed as to how we move forward with our capacity building efforts and how you may have opportunities to support us in those important one-time efforts that are so critical and have a long-term impact on our mission. And we are, in the meantime, Jason is preparing food with volunteers and staff in the kitchen. Our staff and our staging volunteers continue to package our food, and our amazing drivers continue to come twice a week, pick up our food, and deliver it to hundreds of people throughout San Diego County. And so I'm really grateful for that. We continue our fundraising efforts that continue to be the financial support for our organization's capacity to express our mission. One of the most favorite events that will be coming back this fall, and actually has never really paused, is our Mama's Pies event, sale. And that will be kicking off in October. And Jenna will provide, if you're interested in being involved, you can contact Jenna Novotny, our Director of Development. And that is a lot of information, I know, but I know you have some questions, and we're going to look to answer them. And I want to move into a forum that's a little more conversational. I invite our Director of Development, Jenna Novotny, to join me in moderating some Q&A. Jenna,
thank you. Thank you, Alberto. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jenna Novotny. I am the Director of Development, and my pronouns are she, her. So thank you for those who have submitted some questions both before, ahead of time, when you RSVP'd, and then also in our Facebook and YouTube streaming areas. So Alberto, the first question we actually might want to bring Mark back on for. We have a question about the number of people that can be in the kitchen at a time working together for a volunteer shift.
Absolutely. So as Jason and I both hinted at, we do small but mighty teams. So the most folks that are ever in the facility volunteering at one time is 15, but they're not actually working together. So Jason talked about we have one shift here, one shift here. So we have 3 different shifts that happen on a delivery day morning. A team of 6, a team of 6, and a team of 3. So we're still really keeping making most use of our space to ensure that we can still social distance. So still 6 at a time, and we don't anticipate really evolving much beyond 6 at a time. As we've learned throughout COVID, that's been a really great thing for us. Great question, Dana.
And can you also explain, I think, just to kind of circle through all the opportunities and remind us how many people we have during our corporate group volunteers in the afternoons?
Yes, so our corporate group volunteers is also 4 to 6 individuals on Monday and Thursday afternoons from 4 to 6. The majority of our opportunities in the facility happen in the morning, so 8 or 9 a.m. until noon. And then, as I hinted at, and as Jason hinted at, we are adding more and more opportunities in the 12:30 to 2:30, 1 to 3, 2 to 4 type areas. So be looking out as we add additional shifts. I know that we have traditionally been a morning sort of organization, and I know that there are folks among us who are not morning folks. So there are more opportunities for you to come. But again, we'll be capped at 6 folks because we've found that is a good number for us to be able to get the work done that we need to in an impactful way.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. So another great question. Alberto, could you give a little more detail about what changes we expect to see for when the pantry reopens?
So among the things that we are putting together to make this happen in a very more updated and efficient way, and to improve the experience of the clients that we serve in the pantry, we're actually we'll be deploying an app, a system where people can actually go in and pick out their food items. We're also looking, as I implied earlier, at expanding the scope of folks eligible for services, where historically the pantry has been serving people with HIV. Once it reopens, we will be expanding to serve clients who have been completed or are no longer receiving our home delivered meal programs with diabetes, heart disease, people with cancer, with chronic kidney disease, who either go through our home delivered meal program or no longer need that program, will actually be invited to transition into the pantry as long as they meet the income criteria for the pantry service. That way, we are able to both expand the scope of people who can use the pantry while still making it a viable program for the organization to serve folks with other critical conditions. And so it's really exciting. The bigger challenges that we have right in the more immediate, before we can make that happen, is the identification of a location. We will, in the coming weeks, be exploring, starting the actual search of a location and looking for places that have some characteristics that include easy access from public transportation, locations where there may be higher concentrations of folks that may already be living that are using our services. And we are also looking at that as an opportunity to potentially add more space for some staff as well, so that it helps address some of our staffing space challenges.
Perfect. Thank you, Alberto. So another question that came up kind of in relation to how things may have changed a little bit in volunteering, and Jason mentioned that his staff are leading some of the volunteer efforts. Jason, can you give us a little bit more detail about how volunteers interact with staff when they come in to volunteer?
Sure, thanks, Jenna. For those of you who've been around quite a long time, you may remember that we used to have volunteer leads kind of running the show. We now are in a position where we've recruited an amazing staff. So We have Spencer Luster and DeAndre Simmons on my team downstairs that now work hand in hand with the volunteers in staging and in the kitchen and in meal plating. We also, for those of you who haven't been around for a while, we now have 3 cooks in the kitchen. So we have Tyler Thomas, we have Jonathan Moreno, and we have Tim Edwards, who many of you may remember, who's been with the organization 10 years as a volunteer and employee. What we envisioned when we set this system up was to learn from past bumps in the road by giving the volunteers a dedicated staff member to ask questions with, to get to know, and to be a go-to person. So there's times where I'm in meetings and we've dropped the ball, quite frankly, in the past in not being able to communicate properly. So these new players on the team downstairs have been nothing short of phenomenal. And they take care of the volunteers who come in. The volunteers check in with them. They're given tasks. And really, we brought music back into the area, and we want people to come in and have a good time and do a good thing and help us support our mission and take the stress off by just getting to volunteer. So that's the situation downstairs, and we welcome any of you who haven't been back in a while or are intimidated to come back. Come on back.
Thank you, Jason. Wonderful. So a really great question that came up, Alberto. Could you give us a little bit more information about what the financial condition of Mama's Kitchen is compared to prior to COVID around February 2020?
Great question. Mama's Kitchen has been part of the emergency response effort throughout the COVID pandemic. So unlike other organizations or businesses, we've never ceased to operate. And not only that, excuse me, we were able to, it's not as bad as it sounds. It doesn't feel as bad as it sounds. Pardon me.
It's okay.
We were able to serve a lot more people, as we previously shared. We took advantage of those situations to pursue funding, both from government and from the community, to advise the community and inspire the community to support us during that time. And I am immensely grateful to report that our organization is financially stable and able to focus on creative growth, exploring opportunities that exist for the evolution of the organization. And so I'm happy to share that we are a financially sound organization, that we have no debt. The fundraising that we do goes into the services that we provide and the operating of the organization.
Thank you, Alberto. Can add on to that all the CARES Act efforts and funding that was made available, our organization did pursue. We did receive and were fully forgiven a PPP loan. Additionally, as Alberto mentioned, to some of the areas, the regions of San Diego where we're seeing significant growth in the last year, our organization has focused efforts on stewarding and pursuing additional government funding from those cities that it's not new that we serve those cities. It's been many, many years, historical numbers serving those communities, but we have seen a lot of growth. So communities like Chula Vista, Escondido, and El Cajon, in the past year, we have been able to secure additional funding from those communities as well. Let's see. So we do have a question about, as volunteers return, they're seeing some new businesses, some new neighborhood businesses in the area, and they have some questions about access and safety on the roads nearby. Alberto, if you could speak a little bit about what were some projects that we're working on with the city in regards to that.
Absolutely. And that is a very accurate statement. We are seeing more traffic. We are seeing more foot traffic and people who are parking across the street on the Home Avenue side. And we've been working with the city of San Diego to create awareness of this issue as a safety issue for our staff and volunteers. There have been car accidents that have occurred, and we are advocating with the city at this time to either at a minimum put a crosswalk and even consider the possibility of a stoplight. These are projects that by their nature take a long time, but we do know that it's moving forward. Just yesterday or the day before, the folks from transportation were out here doing an assessment of the intersection and getting information on what might make more sense. So I do know that it is moving forward, and we will keep on it. We are working with our neighbors to help advocate along with us on this really important safety issue. I do appreciate the question.
Thank you, Alberto. Possibly just a few more. Can you share, what does Mama's Kitchen look at when evaluating what critical illnesses to add to our mission scope?
Yeah, that's a good question. What we look at are health conditions where there is evidence to the fact that our medically tailored meals can actually improve the prognosis of folks with conditions that, with chronic conditions or health conditions that that are treatable or symptoms of which can be improved. We know from work that's been done over the years around nutrition how medically tailored meals can reduce hospitalizations, emergency room visits. There is evidence to how it improves quality of life of the people that we serve. So those are the factors that help us identify the potential populations that we could serve into the future. On a more immediate basis, one of the areas that we don't have a history of serving that we are exploring are pregnancy complications, including gestational diabetes, and including looking at issues like how postpartum depression can affect, from a nutritional perspective, both mother and child and family. So that's just one area that is coming to the forefront for us to explore. But generally, the criteria is really, can our intervention make a difference in people's health outcomes?
Perfect. Thank you, Alberto. Probably just one or two more questions here. Has Mama's Kitchen been serving any individuals diagnosed with COVID?
Yes, we have. We know that we have served people with COVID, though that has not been an explicit goal of Mama's Kitchen. Our predominant goal from the start of this pandemic has been to provide our intervention for the folks with critical illnesses that we serve, all of whom are at risk of complications from COVID. And by receiving our no-contact home-delivered meal services, they are able to better protect themselves from COVID infection, and thus the potential complications that they have a higher vulnerability for. So, yes, but we go much beyond that.
Thank you. I believe that actually the one last question that we have is, and we might need to quickly jump to Mark on this, For those that haven't, have volunteered or delivered in the past, but have not been with us in some time, how many delivery routes are we currently up to, Mark?
We are at 54. So in the before times, we were entered March 2020 with 36. By the end of June of 2020, we were at 62. And then to ensure a consistent experience, JD in client services and myself meet weekly to ensure that we have a consistent route of about 8 to 12 clients, so that any route that you're doing is about the same. There's always things different, but every route serves about 8 to 12 clients. And that's directly from feedback from our drivers from before COVID. So any feedback that you do provide, we do listen to it and take it seriously.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Alberto. I think that's all the questions and the time that we have today. Of course, if you do, if this has inspired any other questions that pop up, whether it be for myself, Alberto, or Mark, or other staff members at Mama's Kitchen, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can email myself, Jenna, JENNA, at mamaskitchen.org, and I would be happy to provide any additional information or answers for you. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in, and everybody, volunteers, stakeholders, supporters. Our mission would not be possible without you. So thank you for helping us get through this. Alberto, you want to finish off the event for us?
Please. This is what we're ultimately about. So I want to finish with a quote from one of our clients. And it reads as follows: "Dear Mama's Kitchen, I cannot express adequately how very grateful I am for your services. I honestly do not know how I would get through this cancer challenge without you. It's a time when one can feel terribly isolated and alone, especially during this COVID scare. You have made this woman's journey less frightening. Your delivery people are efficient and kind, and don't forget the importance of human interaction. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." And this is ultimately what we're about. And I want to thank you for being a part of this journey. Have a lovely evening.